Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Duffy Duck here once again, and I'm back for some more yet again for the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of the Mega Man Marathon set of Let's Plays. And today, welcome back to more Let's Play of Mega Man 3 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, or for the NES for short. So last time we actually did tackle through once again all 8 Robot Masters: Spark Man, Snake Man, Needle Man, Top Man, Heart Man, Shadow Man, Magnet Man, and Gemini Man stages, and also just managed to get ourselves some of these weapons as well. And today for this episode, folks, is the fact we're going to be hitting into those 4 unknown looking robots, which even then, we're about to become towards them during right about now, because those 4 robots are usually located in Spark Man, Needle Man, Shadow Man, and Gemini Man stages. So even then, guess what you have to do? You have to replay those stages again. Because although the actual levels themselves aren't exactly the same, although this time around though that the layouts of the actual stage design itself is actually a lot more different this time around, because as you can see, that originally we were trying to able to climb up the ladder in the forms of Sparkman stage, but it turns out the ladder was no longer there at the beginning. But even then, it still only shows up on here though, so even then, this means is the fact that most of these stages are a lot more harder than the likes of the first time ever going to be exploring for these places, because even then, well, unlike in the normal regular stages, that had the fact that, well, I'll explain more details as soon as we're able to actually get into those unknown-looking robots that we might actually come towards in itself. And I definitely know for the fact that a lot of people seem to really dislike the aspect of Mega Man 3, which we'll get into more details onto that as soon as we get into, again, those unknown robots that we might as well able to come towards. Because as you can tell, every time you start up these stages again, well, only 4 stages again, well, it always shows up the question marks. Even then, no, this means they are currently unknown at the moment. So even then, you know, it plays exactly like the same as how it does it in the previous versions of the previous levels ago, but this time around though, they're going to be a lot more harder this time around though, because, and also not to mention, there's going to be a lot of spikes all over the place. So here we go, folks. These guys are the forms of dark robots, and can you tell what this sprite is actually familiar with from hovering down? That was actually Metal Man from Mega Man 2. Because in each revisit in every single levels, there are a grand total of, well, 2 dark robots in each stage. So naturally, there are a grand total of 8 encounters. So even then though, they have to come across into 2 dark robots in the forms of those 4 stages. So even then though, there are 8 of them in total. And it's up to you to able to find yourselves a new weaknesses, because you don't have yourselves your metal blade anymore, and instead you need to find a new weakness chain. So even then though, that it's all about memorization, and even then, I can definitely see why a lot of people seem to really despise the fact that they need to memorize what that new weakness is all about. When it comes to the well, as far as you can tell, Dark Robots also copies the movesets from their past well, Robot Masters from Mega Man 2, because even then though, that, I'm considering these mouse are able to brought back from the dead, or maybe they just copied their data from the previous game. I'm assuming so for that anyway. I haven't really looked that up yet. So even then, the bad thing about the forms of how the fact with the dark robot stages, how the fact the matter is though, is that if you're about to try and face off against with the forms of the first dark robot, and if you manage to accidentally die in the forms of the actual first dark robot, then you have to do the entire level over again, because unlike any forms of the regular levels themselves, those kind of segments doesn't give you any checkpoints in the forms of after when you kill the first dark robot. So yeah, that's the only trickiest part about this. So next up we have is the, I'm considering a Quick Man, but in forms of the dark robots. So yeah, if you manage to accidentally die, imagine that. Well, granted though, if you have the first time you've ever going to be experiencing the dark robots to begin with, then you have to do the entire level over again. Well, thankfully though, I managed to respawn on that specific arena at the very end, so that's the only good thing about it. So anyways though, his weakness is actually forms of Surge Snakes, so because yeah, that's what made people seem to get a lot of frustrated with the forms of dark robot stages, because as a result, not only because you have to redo the entire process over again when it comes to the stage design itself, although granted it gets a little bit more ridiculously hard this time around though, but also you need to figure out what the new weakness chain, and it's all about memorization for bosses too. And not to mention, Dark Robot is a lot harder to avoid than the likes of the original Robot Masters themselves, themselves in the forms of Mega Man 3 itself. So yeah, I can definitely see why a lot of people seem to don't really care about these types of stages like this. So, but naturally there are only 4 of them instead of 8, which I'm sure enough that's the only positive thing. So next we're going to be heading back into Needleman stage, and guess what? It's only nighttime this time around, because unlike the forms of the first time we've ever experienced Needleman stage, it was actually in daytime, so even then now it's performed while nighttime, so... But yeah, if you don't have any of those energy tanks as possible, or E-tanks rather, then you can have to buy your way to able to actually just to get out of your way, trying to able to actually grind for more health. Because if you do have a little bit of health left, and if you accidentally get killed by the forms of the Dark Robot, well, again, you don't have any checkpoints unless if you're ever trying to kill the first Dark Robot, if you lose to a second robot encounter, or the Dark Robot encounter, which... yeah, this wasn't necessary at all for me though, I will admit that right away, so... anyways, let's pick up this more health here in case if I want to able to face off against with the next Dark Robot, so... and speaking of such, there's a E-tank up there, or in this case, wait a minute, I think, no, that's an extra life. I keep on thinking about the E-tanks for some reason, because I really, super desperately want to get those E-tanks before I'm able to actually get a lot of frustration moments by the forms of the Dark Robot stages, so thank you for giving me an extra one up. So yeah, to get the idea for the actual Dark Robot stages, even though these are the only weakest part of the game for me. Well, a lot of Mega Man fans out there for the most part, because even then they had a tons of playthroughs, and then if they want to get into the Wily Castle stage, well, I'll explain more on that later. But even then, we'll find out sooner or later. But for now, let's go ahead and just use to bring out the shock. You know, a Spark Shock, so that way we could able to potentially try to deal with the Airman ability for Dark Robot. I'm presuming the Airman might be a lot harder than the likes of Mega Man 2 on the other hand, because not only do you able to actually deal with the most perfect, precise timing when it comes to dodging those tornadoes and all that stuff, or the whirlwinds I should say, but also how the fact that, you know, this sliding ability that we've gone through, in fact let's go ahead and use my only energy E-tanks or anything like that. So, even though that I might as well able to regenerate myself from here, so... yeah, this is so unpredictable if you couldn't tell from that point right there, because it's actually a lot difficult than Mega Man 2 counterparts for Airman's weapon, so... there he goes. And since that I've got my checkpoint now, thanks to demolishing the one of the Dark Robots, so now let's go ahead and move on to the next portion of the level. So... yeah, there's not much else I can really say about this for the most part, so let's go ahead and just increase our, rush jet, in case if this particular section that it's only mandatory if we want to able to finish up the main game. So because of that though, we can able to actually just take a fly up to the skies. And before beyond that, apologize for the actual sprite flickering makes a return in the forms of this game. Just like in the forms of Mega Man 2, that it does have a little bit of sprite flickering, but a little bit less at this time around though, I feel like. So even then though, that you can perfectly see what's going to be happening throughout, so... anyways though, these dragonflies are probably the most annoying enemies in this section, by the way. Because I must admit though right away, because they're really trying to desperately want to tick me off. Because, surprisingly, because of how the fact that what they're trying to able to aim on me, well, unless if I was trying to be sane for that much, and be sure to be careful of these parachute looking, enemies themselves here, because you're also gonna get screwed over. In case if you don't want to get knocked back or anything like that, good luck with that, because even then, especially if you get hit, then... well, you have to go all the way back to the beginning points of that section from before, so yeah, that's the only trickiest part about that situation here, so just gonna make sure this guy go past, and now we can able to move on. And before we move on, let's go ahead and equip ourselves the Shadow Man's Blade, so that way we can deal with this particular bigger variation of this particular robot here, which his weakness is actually forms of the Shadow Blade. All you to do is basically just aim at this little cross symbol, and that way that should be good to go with that particular mini boss, so that should be good to go here. So, oh yes, I need some more health, because even then, as soon as we're able to get to the very end of the level, whenever I was trying to deal with the forms of the Dark Robots, then yeah, that's what I can really think about. Alright, so these little cannon obstacles, they are very easy to kill, especially with the Shadow Blades. I really do love the Shadow Blade because it is very, very good when it comes to certain situations. Even especially noticeable with the magnet missiles, even though that could be something related to that. So there goes another one here. And good thing if you manage to deal with the last of one of those bigger robots like this, then you would able to actually get yourselves the extended health there. So I might as well definitely need to pick that up. And we can able to face off against with the 4th Dark Robot in the forms of Mega Man 3, and the 2nd and the final Dark Robot in the forms of the Needleman stage. So here's Crashman from, you know, Mega Man 2, and his weakness is actually forms of Hard Knuckle. Although, I will admit though right away, I barely used Hard Knuckle for some occasional moments, although sure, this weapon is extremely slow, compared to the likes of how it does in any other weapons for this matter. But the fact of the matter is though, that he's entirely toast. And strangely, I've got myself a little bit of health left to be able to survive for this battle. Oh man, that was really close actually. So now let's move on to the next one in the lineup. Let's go for Gemini Man stage. Even though I can definitely see why that there's going to be a lot of changes of the actual level design like this. Now, if you remember by the forms of how the fact that we've actually come towards the water section in the forms of the Gemini Man stage. Well, you know how the fact that we've actually got ourselves, you know, Rush Marine. Now we can simply just use that in the forms of this particular reincarnation of the forms of the, you know, Gemini Man stage. So, because of that though, we'll get to that shortly after that. So, yeah, today was actually forms of the 6th of August in 2018, which again, they barely started by the forms of August month, so that's to be expected. So, there's not much else I can really say about this for the most part though, other than, like, you know, we've already got about, like, 2 more months left actually, until when Super Mario Party is about to be released on the Nintendo Switch, and, you know, you get the idea. And, yeah, for the most part, everything else will be doubly checked in here when it comes to news and updates and all that stuff. There's one thing I forgot to say about this, actually. In addition to Mario and Sonic having mentioned about this and during the likes of Mega Man 1 and especially Mega Man 2 Let's Play, of how the fact of the matter is, though, is that recently, in the forms of the Sega Forever lineup of games, is the fact that one of the games is actually forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 was now listed in the forms of Sega Forever in the forms of the iPhone applications, and I'm presuming Android mobile phones as well, which I could assuming so if that's going to be the case though, because I don't know what it is though for Apple to actually not be including Episode 1 of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 in the Sega Forever lineup, in addition to Monkey Ball 1 on the forms of, or Super Monkey Ball, the first one, in the iPhone devices, which I'm not entirely sure why they didn't include those, but that's just how I think it is, so. Yeah, once again, it's going to be filled with all kinds of these little achy shells right there that we need to able to take down with. In addition to that though, we do need to also take down those these particular tadpole looking creatures every time you're actually just trying to get rid of these little tadpole eggs in case we're about to can't afford to get hit. So, and yeah, if you couldn't tell right away for this point, folks, I really do apologize for this this uploading schedule's been up really late recently, just because of how the fact that, well, I was going to be mainly concentrating on the forms of the schedule work, but the forms of the actual Mega Man marathon, because after Mega Man 3, which, by the way though, since then, how the fact that, okay, here's the, well, this might be Flashman, so his weakness is the Gemini Man laser, which I will admit though is kind of annoying to use, especially noticeable, you know, you only have to shoot the Gemini laser at least only for just once. So because of that though, after when it's been depleted with the actual laser, then you can use that again. So that's the only annoying thing about the forms of the Gemini Man laser, so, or Gemini laser. So anyways though, let's use Rush Coil to just get all the way up until we're able to actually come towards the forms of the highest height. And after all that, then we can able to actually go all the way to the right, and then here we have a large body of water. Now, you remember with the forms of the Rush Marine, that way we can able to use that properly. So even then though, that again is mandatory if we want to able to actually bypass this part. So even then though, that if you manage to use the Rush Marine, then booyah, we can actually bypass every sort of enemies, spikes, and pretty much everything else for this matter. So that's very cool though, especially noticeable how the fact that I believe conservatively, I'm presuming that Rush Marine, I've only used that just once for just in this one section alone. So, if that's the case, mind you, then that's why I can really just top it all off, so... Anyways though, let's go ahead and continue, and we got ourselves these particular robot mice looking robots here. So I'm hoping I can able to get myself these health pickups, because I really need to get myself, there we go. Okay, so we should be all sorted and good to go for this point, other than I need a bit of more health though, especially when I was still pretty much limited when it comes to E-tanks and all that stuff, which I'm also able to consider this fact. So anyways though. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention about this actually, is that there's actually a new film that's been recently announced on the forms of the theaters or the cinema recently. And that's the forms of the Teen Titans Go to the movies, which did recently came out. And ironically enough, the fact that that film did pretty well in the review scores, ironically, because I haven't really watched any of the Teen Titans Go series, because even then, I just really can't afford to watch them, to be honest. Of course, we've got ourselves the Bomberman here, which, his weakness is that much like in the forms of Metal Blade from Mega Man 2, the Shadow Blade is going to be weakness in the forms of Bomberman's weapon when it comes to the Dark Robots, so there he goes. Although, just like in the forms of the Bomberman stage from, you know, in Mega Man 2, that we do need to dodge those spikes because, obviously, these spikes will instantly kill you, so you just have to watch out for that. Now let's move on to the final stage in the forms of the Dark Robot segments, and that's the forms of the Shadow Man stage, so... Although, again, it doesn't feel, although the level layouts feels exactly the same, but this time around, though, they now have filled with spikes in certain walls and ceilings. I mean, this is definitely worth replaying, although, I will admit though, this doesn't feel right for extending game time, I will admit though right away, because I can definitely see why, that a lot of Mega Man fans out there seem to get really, have a lot of trial and error moments when it comes to the Dark Robots themselves, because, you know, you have to deal with a lot of new, weakness chains with all that stuff, and you have to, memorize their attacks and all that stuff. I mean, sure, I still really find this to be the weakest aspect of the forms of Mega Man 3 in my opinion. Although, it's good for extending game time, but at the same time, it just wasn't necessary at all for me, because even then, because I was more used to with the forms of Mega Man 1 and Mega Man 2, after demolishing every single Robot Masters, then I can simply just manage to jump into the forms of the Dr. Wily's castle stages. But here, I just feel like that the Dark Robot segments didn't really need to be there at all for me. I mean, surely it was a thing, but to me, it just doesn't feel like extending game time for me, though I will admit that right away. But don't worry, when we get to Mega Man 4 and 5 and 6, and especially 7 especially, then things will go to normal as usual. But something a little bit different to the table, which we'll get to that during later time. But from now on though, we'll concentrate on Mega Man 3, so... Anyways though, so yeah, Shadow Man's not that much of a challenge with the actual stage environments itself, other than just you're gonna have to constantly using the, well, you know, rush coil and all that stuff. Oh look, there's Woodman here. But the thing is with Woodman is that much like in the forms of Mega Man 2, I found Woodman's, battle can get pretty tricky sometimes, because all he does is basically that when it comes to the Dark Robot version of, Woodman, well, it'll do the exact same thing, but his weakness is actually forms of the needle point, or in this case a needle shot, mind you, so even though that everything else will be top-notch as far as you expected. So thankfully though, we got ourselves our health extended now, so even though hopefully it should give us a pretty comfortable experience altogether so far, well, until we get to the last few points of it though, that you can definitely see why how the fact that, well, that I can definitely see that the Dark Robot stages are a lot more harder than the likes of the, well, not just for the actual facing off against with the Dark Robots, but it's also because you need to make your way to the actual stage design as well. So even though they're gonna get a lot of trial and error moments here sometimes, and it can instantly get itself the game over every time you actually come towards them. So, speaking of game over, it's the fact that, unlike in the forms of Mega Man 2, that, if you manage to carry a certain amount of, E-tanks, that you lose them for good, or you just manage to lose them instantly if you get a game over in Mega Man 2. Well, thankfully though, in Mega Man 3 in the future games, that you can actually keep them for good. So even though that could be very easy when it comes to the future Mega Man games entirely though, especially with the classic Mega Man in the industry. So anyways though, so let's switch over to the Shadow Blade, and here we go, face off against with the final Dark Robot, and that's the forms of Heatman. So I still really think that Heatman is by far the trickiest robot master to deal with in Mega Man 2. But it might be very easy in Mega Man 3 though, at least if you know what you're doing. Because all you have to do, basically I suggest you're able to throw this, the Shadow Blade right at the Dark Robot. And then after when he starts teleporting, and then slide across each directions. And oh, I missed aim. There we go. Boom. There we go. That concludes the Dark Robot stages, so thankfully I don't have to touch those ever again. So I can definitely tell why that these stages are considerably a lot more dumber than you think. So after when you deal with all of these Dark Robot levels, then you have to deal with Breakman again for a 4th time. I mean, what's this guy's deal? He's doing the exact same crap as he does in the previous encounters. Like, he always jumps, shoots, and then every time you shoot him enough times, then you were able to find out after dishing out him, and boom, he's toast. Oh no, right after we received the last element, Wily run off with Gamma. So, Wily was behind all this in this entire time. At first I thought he was going to be in a good side for once, but no, he betrayed us. So I'll be like, oh, for the love of... In addition to the Dark Robot stages, now I have to deal with the Wily Fortress stages. Fantastic. Well, at least as far as I'm also able to see what the difficulty compares to the forms of Mega Man 2's counterparts of the forms of Wily Castle stages. So, anyways though, let's move on to the first level in the forms of Wily stages. Here we have Wily Stage 1. And right off the bat, as you can see by a few seconds ago, I've managed to pick up my extra 1-up right there from the start. This might actually be by far is the easiest Dr. Wily castle in any Mega Man game, or even for this matter, the easiest final castle you've ever played in a Mega Man game. Because not only does it usually retains a whole lot of extra 1-ups, but also because there's going to be filled with E-tanks. Because I'm guessing because of the developers of this game might actually feel incredibly bad for me to able to actually go through these Dark Robot segments. So even then, they just made the Dr. Wily stages a lot more easier this time around compared to the likes of how it does in Mega Man 2, and even especially noticeable in Mega Man 1. So that maybe seems a lot more being the case right there. And there's another extra life right there, which unfortunately I'm probably not going to get that because for some reason my Jumps doesn't like me trying to able to get that 1-up, but that's okay because I still managed to cut myself like 7 1-ups or so. And right there, there's another E-tank. So yeah, you can definitely expect to how the fact that this particular Wily Castle stages might actually be one of the easiest final castles in any Mega Man games at this rate, which is very understandable really, because the game is very generous with you when it comes to getting extra 1-ups, E-tanks, more health, and weapon energy occasionally, and that's all I can really think about. So yeah, I'm really happy about that. See, even I know that, yeah. Alright, let's take down this little jerk off right there, trying to chuck these little black little obstacles right from the start. And as soon as we do enough hits, then boom, he's toast. Okay, so yeah, there's not much else to really say about Wily Stage 1. We're just going to be traversing through the sewers most of the time right there. And yeah, that's what I can really think about. So anyways though, let's go ahead and just use Rush Jets really quickly in case if I was going to be bypassing that enemy entirely, in addition to able to actually go and bypass for this part right there, which I'm probably not going to use my Rush Jet or anything like that, because I'm going to pick up those health pickups, so might as well just stand here and wait for this disappearing blocks to show up, and boom, there we go. Sometimes I died right there for some reason whenever I first time I play this, but at least it happens sometimes with skills department right there, so I don't really think I can pick up these weapon energies for now, so let's get to it. But in forms of the next boss, or the first boss I should say, in forms of the Wily Castle stage, but in forms of this particular robot, or this crane machinery thing, which usually summons the turtles at you, which is kind of reminds me of the forms of you know, the submarine boss from Mega Man 1, and especially noticeable with the trapped room from Mega Man 2, except the fact that it's going to takes place in underwater. In fact, it's actually way easier than it's as far as this boss looks. But the only weakness to this boss fight, though, I will admit that right away, is the forms of the Shadow Blade. So as long as you get yourselves your Shadow Blade with you, then you would be fine. So now let's move on to Wily Stage 2. So yeah, look at this. Because of how the fact that... Oh yeah, there's a 1-up right there. Am I on my way to able to get that? I'm pretty sure I might as well get that. Which thankfully is easier to able to actually just to navigate through. So hopefully we might as well grab that. And boom. You have to jump immediately though, because one of these trap floors manage to able to throw you off a bit occasionally. Because if you manage to get thrown off by the forms of these trap floors, then you have to fall all the way down to the very beginning portion of it again. So, and of course we got ourselves the returning bee enemies ever since during the likes of the Hardman stage. And in fact, this might be the final time we're going to be seeing those really ticked off bees, because even then, I really don't like the bee enemies, honestly, because they always are trying to able to home on me, especially noticeable when I was stopped to a complete halt or something like that. And then when I was trying to able to pick up something like the weapon energy, E-tanks especially, and even health pickups, sometimes it always attempts to distract me every time those bee enemies always attempt to distract me. So I'm also able to pick up the weapon energy for the hard knuckle, because the next boss we're going to be hit into, and there's the 3rd E-tank right there, and a 4th E-tank right there. Jeez. Gee, I wonder why. This might actually be the easiest Dr. Wily stages of all the Mega Man games at this point in time. Well, at least as far as that's mainly concerned with this. But even then, yeah, I think I should probably just regenerate my rush jets, so that way it can be completely filled up for the time. So now let's go ahead and just switch back to its normal self, because apparently those stupid bees almost trying to make me killed. Well, thankfully though, we've got 4 E-tanks at the moment, so I might as well use one immediately, and I might as well save the rest until the next levels, because even then, let's move on to the next boss in the forms of the Wily Castle 3, or in this case for the ads. So let's see which boss fight we're gonna be. Oh no. Don't tell me it's gonna be Yellow Devil, isn't it? The returning boss from Mega Man 1. Which, as far as I'm aware, yep, freaking Yellow Devil. Jeez. I wonder why that he was there in the first place. Although, it doesn't matter for this too much, because this is Mega Man 3, not Mega Man 1, because you do have tons of E-tanks to your disposal, and this boss moves much slower than the likes of how it does in the first game this time around, which, I'm presuming the only weakness, or actually quite a few weaknesses you can able to deal with Yellow Devil, is the forms of the, Hard Knuckle, or the Mega Buster itself, much like how it does in Mega Man 1, or something like that. And you can able to do quite a few amount of hits on Yellow Devil right there, which, yeah, that seems, yeah, very simple, self-explanatory. Although, the only trickiest part about this boss fight sometimes is to able to dodge this particular body parts, as you can see right there. Well, thanks to the improved upon the forms of how the fact that Mega Man can perform a sliding ability, so that means this boss fight is, well, pretty simple. And there he goes. That concludes, well, Yellow Devil. And we're never going to be seeing Yellow Devil until Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS, and especially noticeable for the Nintendo Wii U as well. And I believe also Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch, which we'll find out sooner or later. Well, who knows, maybe until Gamescom 2018 might actually just cover that, but we'll never know. So here we go, folks, on to Wily Stage 3 in the forms of Mega Man 3. So, yeah, that makes it very obvious at this point. So, let's go ahead and climb for some ladders. But on the credit side though, oh, there's another spare E-tanks. Jeez, I managed to go myself 4 E-tanks again. So, but on a good side about the forms of Mega Man 3, there is no stupid turret boss in the forms of Mega Man 2. Because, seriously, F that particular turret boss in Mega Man 2, because I know for the fact that a lot of people seem to get really irritated by the forms of the turret boss, which again, that, Crash Bomber is the only weakness to that boss, so, but no turret boss, now give it a plus, so, yeah, that's all that good stuff. Yeah, because, yeah, you can see there's a crap ton of healing items, as you can see right down there, and especially noticeable with these weapon energy as well, which even then, that might be considered as to be aka one of the easiest Dr. Wily castles in any other Mega Man game, which I've already said this countless amount of times, but still, it's pretty easy to ignite that. Well, until when we get to Mega Man 4, and especially Mega Man 5, it will be a little bit more mixed balance between somewhat easy segments and sometimes harder spots like that, but at least that's as far as usually consumption to that, so... Now, with this part right there, all you have to do is basically just jump from platform to platform, and you should be able to dodge those spikes at all times, but as long as you know what you're doing, then you will be perfectly fine too, so... Yeah, I'm guessing we've, at the very end... I did not meant to waste that. Okay, that's fine. Now, in order to actually get rid of those little, green-like doors like this, you must be sure you need to, obtain the hard knuckle if you want to be able to destroy those little green doors and all that stuff. So let's see what's in these. The new, weapon energy. So, speaking of stuff, let's go ahead and refill, you know, hard man weapon. Or in this case, hard knuckle. So, yeah, I wasn't able to actually say that much. So, here we go, on to the next boss in the forms of the Wily Castle stage in Mega Man 3. We have ourselves a copy robot yet again, only in forms of 3 clones of Mega Man this time. And his weakness is Surge Snake, so as you can see that we've managed to demolish him, no problem. Nice one. And after all that, then we can hit into the next stage, which is the forms of Wily Stage 4, which, as far as you might expect it, that unlike in the forms of Mega Man 2, that, you know, in the boss rush department is always on the exact same location as the forms of Wily Machine 2 that you have to deal with. But it turns out the forms of how the fact that this might actually be the boss rush level, so... might as well be able to actually get to that point as soon as we get to it. So, but first off, we have to deal with these particular, junkier enemies to deal with right here, and another one of those healing stations, including the forms of weapon energy with, regenerating stuff, which, I wonder why though, is the fact that why it just makes it a ton bit more easier than the likes of how it does in the previous Mega Man games when it comes to Wily stations in general, which, still, I want to be able to know. But anyways, though... Oh yeah, and by the way, I forgot to mention about this actually, is that this game, much like the ones in the forms of Mega Man 2, actually offers a password system. So even then, if you turn off the game, if you want to able to go back to what you got into, then you can able to continue where you left off. So even then, if you actually input those little counters on this right place of the actual grid. So that's pretty obvious at this point. So here we go on to the boss rush yet again. So even though there's not much else I can really discuss upon for this point, other than, you know, for the likes of, you know, Snake Man, which is the only first robot master that we did manage to tackle through in the forms at the very beginning of the game. Well, I finally realized about the fact that what his weaknesses is all about, which we'll get to that shortly after that. So even then, we'll just have to like go ahead and demolish him, and there he goes. So, yeah, I do apologize I was moving around the microphone recently, because even then, that it's quite spankily hot today outside in my country these days. So I really must confess right about now, it's actually really hot today, because it was obviously because it's summer, so... Alright, so we have Sparkman, again, weak to the forms of the Shadow Man's Shadow Blade. So, everything else is all encountered here, so let's move on to, let's go for this pointless, top spin right here to deal with, Shadow Man real quickly. So, I can definitely I really consider that, Shadow Man is definitely the more harder robot masters to deal with right there, because as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing, and in fact I'm almost gonna die right there, so good thing I grabbed my E-Tank for my disposal, and we'll just simply finish it off with the forms of the, you know, Spark Shark before we, actually I think Surge Snake will do, because he'll do quite a good amount of damage, but sometimes he moves ridiculously fast, which even then I will admit though, that's pretty tricky sometimes. So there we go, that concludes those 4 robot masters right there, so only halfway points left, so let's see what should we go for next. I'm more concerned about trying to go for that one next, or I don't know how much robot masters, I think we've done 3, so I think I apologize for I just miscounted on that, so alright, so next up we have is the forms of Needleman, so let's go ahead and bring out, what's his weak to again? Oh, Gemini Laser, so there he goes. He'll do his amount of damage, and... oh, I missed my aim. Shoot. Oh, okay. Huh, thank you. I guess that did help me for once. Alright, so now let's move on to the next Robot Master real quickly. Let's go ahead and go to the Snake Man. So, I finally realized about something is the fact that you know the needle weapon that we've got? Well, that's what Snake Man's weakness is into, but he forms off the needle weapon. So, that's very obvious because even though that way it'll do a lot of damage this time around though compared to Mega Buster, unlike any forms at the very beginning of the game that we did encounter him from the very beginning, and boom, he's down. Alright, so how much Robot Masters that we've got left now? I'm presuming we've got about, a few more to go, but in forms of only 3 of them left, so, and then once we're done with all 3, then we can able to deal out with, Dr. Wily himself. So even then, that hopefully we're able to actually take him down, so yeah, you get the idea. And thankfully though, with the magnet missile, that way we can able to actually deal with Hardman for reals this time around though, instead of like shifting between both Magnet Missile or essentially Mega Buster sometimes. But as long as we're able to demolish his health, then he's down for good. Alright, two Robot Masters left, so let's go with the ones with I don't know actually. Let's go ahead and use the Shark, Spark Shark. And then try to able to actually deal with Magnet Man real quickly. So, because again, that's probably his weakness since in 2. And boom, he's down. Alright, one more Robot Master left. And I can definitely see why, although I can definitely tell this might be a little bit tricky of the actual Robot Master rematches. Now it's in forms of Gemini Man. So, let's go ahead and bring out Search Snake. And we can able to deal with him for reals. Oh, that's actually pretty good when it comes to that specific, strategy right there. And I'm almost going to be dying here, so let's bring out my E-Tanks, so I might as well be able to use that. I think I might actually use that for the final time, because after that, well, here's something a little bit weird until we get to the very end of the game. So, there we go. That concludes all the Robot Masters in Mega Man 3. So once you deal with all 8 of them, then we can able to actually leave the level. In addition to that, we also got ourselves the energy regenerator, or in this case, the actual weapon energy. A little bit, I don't know. Sorry, a little bit confused right there for this point. In addition to that, we also got an extra 1-up. So naturally, I've got 9 extra 1-ups. Seriously, how much lives I can get for this point, people? So anyways, once we leave this level, then we can actually get into the final battle in the game, but it forms of Dr. Wily himself. So I wonder what these items are, wonder, which even then, we might as well find out until now. So let's go ahead and just regenerate our Spark ability, and let's go ahead and see what's in these items. Another extra 1-up, and another extra 1-up. Jeez. How many lives I've got? 11 or 12? I think, to be more accurately, 12 though. So anyways, here we go on to Wily Machine 3. Now, this might actually be a lot easier than the likes of how it does it in Wily Machine 1 and especially Wily Machine 2. Because the reason why I say that, because in this first part, all it does is basically we need to use the Spark Shark and able to actually deal some of the damage on this particular aiming cannon shot. And then once you're done with that, and then use Rush Jet to able to actually just make this boss fight a crap ton of easier. And then you shoot him onto his glass dome. So that's all you have to do with the actual, well, Mega Buster. So that's all we have to do here. And boom, he's down. And there we go, folks. I believe that pretty much does it for Mega Man 3. So hopefully that Dr. Wily will manage to forgive us again. And what the Christ? A fake. I know that was a fake. Which doesn't mean really by much, because we're actually going to be doing with the absolute final battle in the game, where before we get to the true final battle, sorry for a little bit of tangents right there, after this one last recovery room of everything else, like extra lives and E-tanks and all that stuff. Seriously? And speaking of, seriously? We got not 1, but 2 E-tanks I've managed to get by the forms of the randomizer box. In addition to there's one from the top there, which I might as well use the rush jet really quickly. So that way we could able to actually grab the health regenerator or the health item pickup. And especially noticeable with the forms of, So, let's begin with the absolute final battle in the forms of Mega Man 3. here we get ourselves into, well, not only Dr. Wily, but he informs about the fact that now he's actually informs of inside the actual body of robot known as Gamma, which almost inspires by, well, as you might guess, the Gutsman, because this design looks exactly almost identical to Gutsman. And guess what? You would never believe what his weakness is. Look at that! The top spin, as far as despite the fact how useless it was, is actually weakened against with it. And I was like, I don't get it. Oh man, top spin sometimes. That can really be something else. Oh, who's that, I wonder? Where's Dr. Wily? Oh no, too late. Epilogue. Mega Man, you regained consciousness. I found your lane here when I arrived. I wonder who brought you here. I don't know about you, Dr. Light. This whistle, it must have been Proto Man. So you're telling me, but the fact of the matter is though, is that you know the Brakeman robot that we've actually encountered from the entirety of the game? Turns out his real name is actually forms of Proto Man. Which, wow. And I'm sure enough that, again, Dr. Wily managed to able to escape this time again and again, which, into all the future games, they can definitely see why until the future series might will become. So, anyways. So in this credit sequence right there, it tells you about the fact that with the numbers of the robot masters as far as the actual forms of itself, see Fernando, that we've actually got towards the forms of Roll as number 2 right here. And also number 1, as you expected, Mega Man, aka Rockman in Japan. And finally, body forms of number 0, body forms of Proto Man, a new robot prototype brother of Mega Man. I can definitely see how this will turn out to be. And in this final shot, we get ourselves the silhouette, or in this case, this little, oh my god, is that a tiny, Dr. Wily ship capsule? That could only be in one game. Well, there's no doubt about that, but even then though, that, oh by the way, for those of you who lived in Japan, that was Proto Man's real name was, his name was Blues, because of musical reference. But I digress. So let's get into the actual final force of Mega Man 3, with the exception of maybe the Dark Robot segments. I had a fun, enjoyable time on this one. With addition to Rush, and it informs about the fact what the actual level layouts is actually very sporadic, or in this case very unique to the series, in addition to the fact that how fast and energetic that was. And it's actually a very memorable game. It introduces a sliding ability which always becomes very handy in some scenarios, and Rush is very awesome to use, and the weapons themselves aren't too shabby either, and also the soundtrack is very good stuff as well. The only thing that holds it back for me though with this game is the Dark Robot segments, because we had a tons of playthroughs. Every time you went there, if you manage to get stuck on the Dark Robot segments, and if you want to actually get to the Dr. Wily's castle stages, then I suggest you're able to actually use the password system in order to actually just skip the entirety of the Dark Robot segments. So overall, it's a very memorable game as far as the classic Mega Man games goes, and it's a financial success for that as well. And I can definitely see why that a lot of people seem to think this is one of the best in the series. But even then, alongside with Mega Man 2 or anything else for that relatable. But even then, aside from that though, that concludes Mega Man 3. So yeah, that's all I can really say about Mega Man 3. Very enjoyable game, and you should definitely recommend it to your collection. Expecting for Mega Man Legacy Collection if you want to get that nowadays. So yeah, this is me, Duffy Duck here, and tune in next time of the forms of the Mega Man Marathon. Now we're about to be jumping into Mega Man 4 for the NES or Nintendo Entertainment System, which by the way, Piglet needs to able to get into that game. So yeah, enjoy the actual Let's Play of it, and yeah, that's what I can really say. So see you guys next time. Bye.